My daughter-in-law demanded I leave my estate to her 6 stepchildren. When I refused, she sued me and faced a brutal reality check. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to end up in a lawsuit with my own family. I'm a retired man in my late 60s, having worked my whole life to build a modest yet comfortable estate. I have one son, David, who married a woman named Lisa 5 years ago. Lisa came into the marriage with 6 children from previous relationships. While I respected her commitment to her kids, I never expected what happened next. Lisa demanded that I change my will to leave my entire estate to her stepchildren, children I barely knew and had no biological connection to. When I refused, she took me to court. What followed was a battle I never saw coming, but one that ultimately served as a brutal reality check for Lisa. Lisa and I never had a warm relationship. She was always polite on the surface but had an entitled streak that rubbed me the wrong way. Still, for David's sake, I tolerated it. One evening, I invited David and Lisa over for dinner. We had just finished eating when Lisa casually brought up the topic of my estate. "Have you decided what you're doing with your will?" she asked, swirling the wine in her glass. I nodded. "Yes, my estate will be divided between David and my biological grandchildren." Lisa set her glass down sharply. "That doesn't seem fair. My kids consider you their grandfather. Shouldn't they be included?" I raised an eyebrow. "Lisa, I barely know your children. They have their own fathers. My estate is for my son and biological family." Her face turned red. "So you don't see my kids as family? That's heartless." David looked uncomfortable but didn't intervene. I stood firm. They have their own parents to provide for them. My estate is going to the family I built and raised. Lisa stormed out, dragging David behind her. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I received legal papers. Lisa was suing me, claiming that I had promised to leave her stepchildren part of my estate and was now reneging on that promise. I was stunned. I had never made such a promise. Furious, I called David. "What the hell is this, David? Your wife is suing me." David sighed. "Dad, I told her this was a bad idea, but she's convinced she has a case." "A case for what?" "It's my money." "I know, Dad," he said tiredly. "I don't agree with her, but I can't stop her." That was when I realized that David, my own son, had become a bystander in his own marriage. Lisa's claim was ridiculous, but I had to defend myself in court. Her lawyer argued that, because I had spent holidays with her children and given them occasional gifts, I had established a grandfatherly role and therefore had a moral obligation to include them in my will. My lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Margaret, wasn't having any of it. "Your Honor, this is a blatant attempt to manipulate an elderly man's finances. Mr. Johnson has the right to distribute his estate as he sees fit. The plaintiff's claim is based on entitlement, not law." Lisa took the stand, putting on an emotional show about how her kids saw me as their grandfather and how I was heartlessly abandoning them. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it simple. I love my son, and I love my biological grandchildren. I have met Lisa's children a handful of times. They have fathers of their own. My estate is for my family. Lisa's children are not my responsibility. The judge saw right through Lisa's manipulation. The case was thrown out immediately. But the consequences for Lisa were only beginning. Lisa had made a colossal mistake. Not only did she lose the case, but she also destroyed her own reputation in the process. First, she was humiliated publicly. Word spread through our community about what she had done. Friends and extended family turned against her, disgusted by her greed. Second, David was furious. While he had remained passive for much of the situation, losing in court forced him to see his wife in a new light. They had several explosive fights about it, and the cracks in their marriage deepened. Third, she faced financial repercussions. The judge ordered her to pay my legal fees, which amounted to thousands of dollars. Since she didn't have that kind of money, David ended up covering it, further straining their marriage. Finally, I took an extra step. I updated my will to explicitly state that Lisa and her children were to receive nothing from my estate, making it legally airtight. A year after the lawsuit, Lisa and David's marriage fell apart. David filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. While the lawsuit wasn't the only reason, it was the final straw. Lisa lost everything: her reputation, financial stability, and ultimately her marriage. As for me, I'm still here, living my best retired life. I spend my time with my biological grandchildren, traveling, and enjoying the peace of knowing that my estate will go exactly where I want it to go. Lisa learned the hard way that greed has consequences. She thought she could manipulate me, but in the end, all she did was destroy her own life. And honestly, I have no regrets. Entitlement gets you nowhere. You can't force someone to leave you an inheritance, and trying to do so might just cost you everything.